The research and innovation at the service of emotion is now a reality, and we're going to see this together with our first invited guest, Guillaume de Lesquen. Hello. You are worldwide president of Designer Brands Fragrances of L'Oréal. We can say it like that. And you have created with Ircam Amplify a sound which provokes the same sensation as the new viktorrolf Perfume Spice Bomb Infrared. You're going to offer us a new digital perfume experience. Let's see how that happened, and we'll talk about it just afterwards. Spice Bomb Infrared is a men's fragrance which develops all of the sensuality of the body during the day and during the night, and depending on the temperature of the body. When we joined with Amplify, they asked us, are you able to create a sound which demonstrates the perfume, the heat of the perfume? We saw that with an approach which is very experimental. So the first stage was to working on a survey. We had to see the methods of viktorrolf. The perfume said when they created the perfume, it was to the bringing sensations of. In perfumery, there's a terminology which sometimes can be quite similar to the terminology used in music. The chords, harmonies, notes, all of these ideas have a common language, and using that, I can tell the story of the perfume. It has a complete vocabulary about heat, about intensity and desire. All of these semantic fields about sensuality, and then going to something softer. So this brings a sound experience, but also you have the same experience with the creation of the perfume. It's a verbal creation. We took its own subjectivity with the sound creation, and we worked on that with the speech method, which was developed by the Ircam Sound and Technology Lab. It's not a sound necessarily that is nice, but simply it's a sound which scientifically has been proved to demonstrate the body temperature. So from that, we develop a very scientific technology using methods of evaluation based on the results on psychoacoustics, and at the same time it's an object which is creative, which is very strong, and at the same time scientifically evaluate as closely as possible the sensations that we want to generate with this sound. It's the first time that I've used this exercise, which I found fascinating, and to retranscribe in a sensorial way very precisely what I have in my head when I think of this viktorrolf perfume. If we look via the sound, it's addressed to millions of thousands of men and women across the world. We give it a completely new dimension, which is very powerful. It's digital, it's universal, and because it's completely based on innovation. Guillaume de Lesquen, it's very innovative idea. How did it come about? It came from a story, really. First of all, a problem of telling a story. We are in a period where everyone is shifting towards the digital sphere and the distribution of beauty and the distribution of perfumes. And then COVID arrived. So COVID brings the closure of perfumeries over the world. And then we wanted to launch a perfume called Spice Bomb Infrared, and this was a perfume which was torrid and sensual, hot, spicy, and we could say it's the red hot chili pepper. And we go from a baseline, a slogan, which is turn up the heat. So turn up the heat of the body, the heat of the night, the heat of the relationship, with the human being, and then we are in a world where perfumeries are now closed. So we have a real problem of communication and of getting our knowledge across, and that's where I came in contact with Nathalie, the president of Amplify, and we said, why don't we work together on a project? And I said, I've got a project which really has a problem, and that's launching a perfume with the promise of bringing up the heat of the body, the heat of the night. How can we work together? And then you started working together in an experimental way, completely experimentally, because I had two ambitions, and that was effectively knowing how far I could go, because I'd never worked on a sound connected with a perfume before. And what I found incredibly interesting was the scientific side, how to prove scientifically that sound can have vibrations, sensations. Could we say that you have together recreated a perfume? After what the perfumer says, the creator of the scent, we say scent in English and sound, so the two are connected very well. The notes that I've created, how can that be turned into a sound? And that's what the consumers say as well. So that wouldn't have worked, but you perhaps didn't work, but you wanted to try it. Well, it didn't work initially. The first one that we made, it was a completely new step for us in the creation of Perfume in Ircam Amplify, and it's a method that we used a lot of people from marketing, from studies, and it wasn't the good method at start. So the sound that we got, we said it was like this. We completely changed method, and then we decided to trust the creation of the sound, the creation with the creation of the sound. So Jean-Christophe with his perfume and Amplify. It's very important in the world of perfume. What does sound offer? Everything. Fundamentally, the sound is a great way of showing sensations, feeling good, feeling great. It's inherent to the perfume. It's a way of showing how you feel, the feeling good. So the most universal way of showing this sensation globally is with sound. And that's how it's fascinating. Image is very conditioned by cultural ideas, historical ideas. Sound goes beyond all these notions, and it's really the universal language of sensations. So is this a field? This is the field of perfumery, which is in the same sensation, the same vibrations, the same emotions. How do we react? How did your teams react, the distributors, with this idea? Well, there's two fields. There are those that say it's great, it's fabulous, it completely breaks with all the codes in the world of perfume, and it's clear that there are people, whether it's one person or another, the vectors of the launch of a perfume. So there are those who think it's absolutely great, extremely new, modern, universal, breakthrough. And then there are those that say we're not ready, it's too early. And so we really are very avant-garde words, especially at first, so I could give more time. The movement's a bit behind, so that gives you ideas for later. I think that there are two fundamental ideas. The first is that what we really wanted in the project is that we wanted to be very clear that the steps that we're going to take, the sensation of the scent, the sensation of heat, the torrid, the sensuality. So the steps, the vision that we had of the perfume is very clear. So we really wanted to have the vision of the sound. So there are great families of sensations in perfume. What we work on now is trying to see what are the great families of this and what are the sounds which go with these steps, which are fundamental, which have scientific value. So it's a very serious task. It's a true task. Sound as well. So this is fascinating. So if you're with Roman and Jean-Christophe, the two investigators, the vibrating, you can conjugate them and their knowledge, put it all together, their knowledge, and that's what's fascinating. So the sound with the in the field of perfume, it's a real revolution, and it's really something that's going to change the way of dealing with perfume, as the digital has completely changed the world of perfume, because hearing a perfume in front of a screen, it's quite difficult. So how are you going to use all this? Well, at the moment we use it a lot in public relations. We use it a lot in common terms, and also we use it to get to know the scent, the spice bomb infrared. So on other perfumes, can you imagine things like this? You were saying before that you, we can imagine a perfumer has a range in front of him. Yes, of course. A sound, you can imagine an organ, for example. You can imagine a voice, an assembly of sounds, or different fragrances. Can you imagine more fragrant sounds? As Jean-Christophe said in the film, the worlds are the same in the creation of the sound and the creation of scent. So we talk about composition by the notes, the chords. So the terminology is exactly identical. So will we be able to create a sound from a perfume and a perfume from a sound? Absolutely. What is absolutely fundamental to me is the scientific approach. So we know that there's a hedonistic approach, but the scientific approach can tell us that I can be able to prove that the sensation, the vibrations are the same in a perfume, and that's what makes the difference. Okay, so we will invite those who are listening to us to test that, to try out the Victor and Rolf Spice Bomb Infrared with the sound that we can find on this film, and then with you on social media, Victor and Rolf. Thank you very much, Guillaume de Lesquen, for taking part in this forum 2022. So we're now going to talk about a transmission experience. For this, I have the pleasure to welcome Mathilde Michel-Lambert. Hello, you're director of the Youth Philharmonic. Hello. So we're going to discover in images the magic of the heart of the Paris Philharmonica. Welcome to the big stage. I'll allow you to move your arms up and down. Are you ready? Let's go. You have to move your arms up and down and left to right. Do like me. So here we are at the Youth Philharmonic Orchestra. This opened on the 29th of September this year for 4 to 10-year-olds to discover music and sound. So in this area, there is an area which is developed to the conductor's experience called Maestro, which was designed with the Ircam Amplify. We're very happy to be able to use this partnership with Ircam and the Paris Philharmonic to benefit of the experience and expertise of the research which has been carried out over the last year as in Ircam, to be able to offer children a very simple, intuitive experience of leading a choir with a virtual experience, which is the amplitude of their gestures and the rapidity and you can go faster.
En accélérant le mouvement de tes bras.
Less quick.
En ralentissant le mouvement.
You can do big gestures or simpler gestures and little gestures to play a bit quieter. So here there's a camera which films the child, and this camera analyzes their movements, and from these movements is translated into different musical experiences, and then the sound experience of directing an orchestra. And in the project that we carried out, we worked a lot in the intention, which was really the objective that we wanted to have, and there were many limitations to be able to show something for a very wide age range, because 4 to 10 years old is quite a wide range. We want it to be intuitive, to give them simple notions, the amplitude of the music and its tempo. And also we wanted it to be a low-tech installation, so despite very elaborate technology, it has to be masked, so it doesn't look like it can look like a video game or something they could do in their own homes, for example. Well done, you did brilliantly. Mathilde Michel-Lambert, the Youth Philharmonic Orchestra, it's a great project for the Paris Philharmonic, which has given rise to a great study. Tell us about that. Well, actually, this is a project that's been going on for about 4 years for the research and design and manufacturing in a process that is systematic, and we wanted that all the objects in this were systematically placed in the hands of a child and tested before being manufactured. So this is a great project in the sense which is completed via families and classes in the Youth Philharmonic, and between the music and the didactic side and the educational side, by proposing a journey of free interaction and exploration which is independent for children with the notions which touches music and sound. So a 1,000 meters squared is your, you were talking about Maestro, but what works well? Is there a top part, a highlight of your facilities that children love? So there are things that work. There are things that work particularly well with very little children. For example, listening to the kitchen noises, cutting potatoes, banging pots and pans. Little children love that. So with rock stars, future rock stars, we can have a graphic image with karaoke. Maestro Maestro is a real hit with this because once children are in a posture where they're imitating and pretending to be a conductor, and they have all the lights, they have the reconstitution of this little theatre, they're really happy to be pretending. So how do they react? They must be fascinated, and on the other hand, what are they looking for when you're offering, what do you look for when you offer this to children? Well, Maestro Maestro, it has an approach which is quite modest for the ensemble of the Youth Philharmonic. When they practice their musical knowledge, whether it's their specific skills, whether it's specific sound, and this approach is modest in the sense that they create a meeting between children and the music. It's the musical condition for humans, which is a way of showing the world and the musicality of the world to a child, particularly for children who nowadays use their eyes a lot to understand the world and to understand the human body and the things around them. So this is something that teachers and parents looking for, is to having a different approach to sensation and discovering the musicality of the life. So this idea of control of movement that was elaborated in this installation, how have you worked on that? Did you have to work a lot with the Ircam Amplify? Well, we worked hand in hand for all these intentions because finally there were many ways of approaching the implementation of the conductor. So are the children going to follow a kind of learning, a methodology which will give them the gestures, key gestures, and in this case, which ones should we choose? Which conductor should we follow? Or should we give them the freedom of action and spontaneity of actions? And that's what we decided to choose by having the dimensions of the speed and the intensity, and the research team really worked in these two dimensions by trying to embrace the free gestures and the gestures which are a little bit unsynchronized, quick, a bit clumsy, because a child has the sensation that their movement has an effect on what they can hear. So the orchestra, for this sensation, how do the musicians react who participated in the building of this project? Well, I think that they had a lot of enthusiasm, and it was linked a lot to the context, the lockdown, and this very particular period. And they were very happy, but in the sense where we had to give the machine, give the software, because it had to be in real time, the direction of the having a child conducting an orchestra, a series of interpretations which was really varied, and we could choose 4 different orchestras to conduct, and the families could record them, and it was very extravagant, with a tempo which was never used, or an intensity which was very weak and very slow, and we could understand all this, but this was necessary because there's a credibility of the musical restitution. So it's also an opening. The Youth Philharmonic has become a lot bigger with this child experience. Who comes to watch you? Well, we have 2 types of main audience for the children for 4 to 10, our school children during the week, and then at the weekends you often have families, and we also have kids clubs on Wednesday afternoon to have access for schools. They can can come and see us, but then it's a very wide audience. So I remember a little anecdote, if you allow me to share that with you. We had a little girl who came from with her father, and she said, "Do you think there is a Philharmonic for parents?" And it's a real discovery. People come and they want to see everything, sometimes in the concert hall, the aesthetics, we could say, which are classic or academic, and they also notice via the experiences on sound and music, we offer them to see what they understand and what they see every day. So we're now showcasing French know-how and French brands. So the Philharmonic of Paris is a great brand which has this great facility for children. We also have a great sound brand from France. And can you imagine this being developed even more? Well, we hope so. So we have tried something which is quite extensive on the notions that we can have with children, with sound and music. We also have chosen this part of body language, spontaneity, freedom of action, with a stage setting which invites them to do that. They feel very comfortable with their body and their movements, and this is all something a bit new, and we can go all around the world, but we won't find always the space which can offer us something as vast and combined with what we do. So effectively, this is great to be able to offer this in France, overseas, to collaborate with the structures and with children and music. So thank you very much, Mathilde. I remind everyone that you are the director of the Paris Philharmonic Orchestra. So great experience in the 19th arrondissement of Paris. Thank you very much. When we speak about sound and interactivity, we think about the radio, how conversational experience can change our relationship with the radio. So I would now like to invite Cécile Chambaudrie, General Manager of Énergie Globale. Hello, hello. So for 40 years, Énergie has expanded on a global scale. It's very powerful. How would you touch on this subject of conversation? Well, effectively, for us, it becomes very naturally, because when we have listen to the radio very loudly in a group, you know, the énergie, chérie, nostalgie, all of these, we always ask ourselves the question, how are we going to be able to prolong this conversation which exists on the radio with all the digital support? How currently that's 20% now of the way that we listen to the radio. This is something that's very significant. and us in our group, we're very attentive to the fact that those who connect and develop and to be able to permit this interaction. So I don't know whether you know, but those who connected is around 100,000 who connect to listen to the radio. So we're not quite at 1 million, but there's a progress on last year, and the 23% of listens of so via those who are connected, we have the perspective, which are absolutely amazing, because we have the interaction between our listeners and our journalists speaking, our presenters. So via the content, not always music, because also we have a very important part, which is podcasts, which has great competition. What do you propose in this? So we propose a podcast, but also the prolonging of our antenna. So the first experience that we did this 1 year ago with Coe. It was great innovation and novelty, and we took interviews with stars, Miley Cyrus, for example, David Guetta, etc. And what we proposed was an experience to the audiences to open a dialogue with Coe, and then have a chain which will allow them to interact and listen to the interviews with the star. So we have a point with that, which was obviously very important, is that to bring the listeners to this very specific program, obviously you have to support them, you have to bring the listeners to and invite them to experience this. That's the first stage, which was very evident for us, because in terms of the antenna, there was always a very clear bit of knowledge, and there's also a lot of learning with the experience on the new uses, and in particular, we've done quite a lot of methods, and the stars who invited the users to use all this. So we had an ecosystem which was quite natural, which allowed the first private group to be listened to this. So to go back to the podcast, it's more recent. The podcasts are very recent. They've been adapted, and we launched the first conversational podcast. We had a podcast which worked very, very well, which works very well. It's called Tell Me the Adventure. It's a podcast which is on Sherry FM, and we addressed via telling an adventure story to children. When we think of children, we think what works very well is to put you in a format which is almost immersive. And there's a book which speaks a lot about, we say, I am the hero. I don't know whether you've heard of it. Yes, I've heard of it. So we say, how can we recreate this experience of the child who is going to listen to the podcast in a way which is completely natural. So I don't know whether that still exists, but the chapter that we chose, we go to the page depending on the orientation of what we want to give to the story. Is that what you do? Exactly, that's exactly what we do. So we started by Alice in Wonderland. So from a technical point of view, we associate with startups which are performing in this, because they are very cutting edge artists. So for the technical part, and we are on the editorial side, where we translate the story of Alice in Wonderland by saying that finally the child is going to be able to choose the Mad Hatter or the rabbit, and they can choose between the Mad Hatter or the rabbit, and then they have a different story each time that you listen to it. So they can either grow or they can shrink. So the story is developed depending on what happens and what the child chooses. So for us, what is very important is that all these emotional capacities that we've spoken about, and during the day, all these emotions that we can create, which are going to be very different, very strong, because the child is not a spectator of its podcast, really the actor of their podcast. And they will enjoy listening to it every day. It's the same story, but they can also have fun by changing the course of the story. So that's quite recent and in teaching, and this is with children. It's really a very obvious, great experience. So we're very happy with this story and proud of it. So the podcast can come out and they work very well. And we have been very high up in the classifications of podcasts. And we have a lot of confidence in the future. So talking about the adverts, we're talking about as well. Is that going to move with the voice commerce? So voice commerce, that is opened quite a lot of problems for brands, because in fact, Live is a brand that has associated with the preferred brand, because effectively he has to come out in first position. So depending on the research stories that you have, of the platform that you're going to use, the propositions, if you ask, we can offer you batteries, for example, we can offer you pills, or Amazon, for example, but if you really want to go on a sound territory, which is very specific, work on the brand preference, and that means that you associate this brand very much with the sound. So the voice commerce has another problematic, and it's all this data security. So that's a complete field which is far from being neutral, and new exploratory fields is heading towards 2022 voice commerce, and still with our steps, if I say, to test things and see how that works, and then to try and make progress with our partners and which are still very performing on the subject. Thank you very much, Cécile Chambaudrie, Managing Director of Énergie Globale. Thank you very much. How can Immersive create new experience? To speak about this, I have the pleasure to invite to this forum Antoine Petroff, the director of Immersive at Amplify. So we speak a lot about image. So what does sound have as an extra? Well, already the first thing is define immersive sound. What are we talking about? Because if I talk about many different things, first of all, when talking about immersive sound, we're talking about the sensation, an experience, a sound experience where we have the impression that we are immersed in the sound. So, what is the best and most effective way of having the sound? So nowadays, we start to obtain formats of sounds which allow us to obtain certain experiences. So we have the wow effect, and it goes further. It goes further. So in the life or everyday life, we're walking in the street, going to a concert, we are permanently in an immersive experience. We're walking in the street, even without noticing it. We might be alone, but we hear the birds around us. We hear cars driving up and down the road. We have a sensation which is realistic, and we have the we are used to seeing. Even a few years ago, to have these sound experiences which were pre-recorded, the formats which were available didn't allow us to live this type of experience. So we have an experience which is reduced compared with what the brain thinks it's hearing. So the brain does work to try to recreate the experience which is not natural for it. So the immersive sound is the brain is freed from all of this, and then it's able to perceive all of these emotions which we're trying to transmit. The wow effect is not just instantaneous, but for everybody, and it's not an effect. It's a sensation of finding what we are looking for mutually. So we've spoken a lot about the brain this afternoon and health when we were looking at the start of the forum with the high quality of music. Finally, the most natural is the immersive sound, completely. So, what can we imagine? How can we prepare the immersive of tomorrow? So, we're talking about what we can have. We're going to look to the future. We'll speak about. Let's first look at the past. With the immersive sound has its wonderful things, and it has. We did studies in France and in Spain years ago that found that in the caves, the pictures that were found there, the echoes were very immersive. So the echoes were so enveloping for a person. There was a direct line between the paintings and the immersive situations. So if we want to look a bit closer, in the 19th century, in Beirut, the public had the impression to be in the middle of the orchestra, and even with the immersive sound, it's not the same as nowadays. Now, if we go to the 20th century, we can see concerts which are immersive with loudspeakers, with people listening, and the events, niche events, we have technology and techniques around which are very complex. Nowadays, we are able to have immersive experience with headphones. We don't have to have immersive experience via loudspeakers, but we can have a car or a system, a sound system, sound bar, for example. Imagine having a dome with a great facility like we have here in Ircam. Nowadays, you have the technology to be able to offer the immersive experience without having a facility like this, right? How does that work? Well, yes. So if we take our headphones, with my headphones, I'm really able to recreate the sound through my ears exactly identical to if was generated outside. So I have the technology which allows me to do that, and in Amplify. So the headphones, we're able to create, we can't create a completely immersive experience, but if we take a car, for example, we have the loudspeakers, which really allows to recreate the sounds in each direction. For immersive sound, we can create the impression for the person who's inside that to be inside this sound bubble. So we develop the technology that allows us to give this impression to the listeners. So therefore, uniquely, via the speaker, do you use specific equipment or software which allow you to allow the listeners to enjoy this immersive experience? It is the software, yes. It doesn't. We have the Amplify player, and we have a particular device, which is really the idea of being able to create an immersive situation, regardless of the device and regardless of the source. So the majority of the content is from this technology, and to give us the immersive experience. So having sound coming from all directions, we don't want that. When we listen to something which is mixed, it's not that we want to do. We want to create a sensation of being immersed in the experience. So after that, this technology, if we have the new formats, which is three-dimensional, to create an experience which is immersive. Thank you very much, Antoine Petroff, Director of Immersive Products in Ircam Amplify.